This is something you guys have been asking for a long time. It took a while, but I finally found 3 stories that all take place during school lockdowns. Let me take you back to one of those days, a day that changed the way I saw school forever. I never expected anything like this would happen at my school. It was the kind of thing you'd see in movies, not something you'd expect to experience firsthand. But sometimes life surprises you, and on that particular day, it would take a sharp turn into chaos. I can still feel the lingering effects of that day, even now, years later. It's one of those things that just sticks with you, you know. It was an ordinary Thursday morning when the first lockdown happened. I was sitting in my chemistry class, which was always a snooze fest for me. I wasn't exactly the best student, but I did my work. I was zoning out, staring at the periodic table on the wall, counting the seconds until the bell rang and I could finally escape for lunch. Everyone around me was chatting, passing notes, and laughing, the usual classroom chaos. It felt like just another typical school day. I was excited for lunch, but I didn't expect it to be the last time I'd feel any sense of normalcy that day. My mind wandered, thinking of how I'd relax during the break, but little did I know, my plans would be completely derailed. The classroom was buzzing with energy, but it felt almost like a false sense of security, like we were all too comfortable, too unaware of what was about to unfold. And then it happened. The lights flickered for a second, and then the school's PA system came on. The voice of the principal, Ms. Jenkins, came through the speakers, shaky and urgent. "Attention, all students and staff, this is not a drill. Lock down the school immediately. I repeat, this is not a drill. Lock down the school." The panic was instant. My heart dropped into my stomach. We all exchanged confused looks, not really knowing what was happening. It didn't make sense. There were no signs, no warnings, no preparation. I glanced at my teacher, Mr. Stevens, and saw the worry in his eyes for the first time all year. He immediately bolted for the door, locking it behind him, then motioned for us to move to the back of the classroom. I could feel the fear rising in my chest, but there was no time to panic. We just had to do what he said. As I looked around at my classmates, their faces mirrored my own confusion and fear. It was like we were all waiting for someone to explain, but no one could. The silence in the room was deafening, punctuated only by the quick, nervous breaths we tried to suppress. Outside the classroom, the hallways were silent, but the tension in the air was thick. No one spoke. The only sounds were the frantic breaths we were all trying to suppress. The usual noise from the hallway had disappeared, replaced by an almost eerie quiet. Everyone stayed low in the back corner of the room, trying to stay out of sight. Some students whispered nervously, but no one dared to make a sound. We didn't know what was going on. Was it a threat? Was someone in danger? It didn't feel like a drill anymore. It felt like real danger. And in that moment, the school, which once felt so familiar, became completely alien and terrifying. We huddled together, trying to make sense of the situation, but nothing made sense. The reality of it hit us all like a ton of bricks. For the first time, the walls felt suffocating, like they were closing in on us. We could feel the weight of what was happening, but still no answers, only silence. Then we heard it. At first, it was distant, but it grew louder as it approached, the sound of a man screaming down the hallway, his voice high-pitched and frantic. 2 girls in the class immediately started crying, which only made all of us even more terrified. The man's screaming grew more frantic as he banged on the lockers, shouting, "I'll kill all of you." It was at that moment I realized this wasn't a drill. This was real. This wasn't something we could easily brush off. The fear in the room was palpable. The banging moved from the lockers to our door, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The sound of the screaming man was deafening. It felt like the entire school was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. Every knock, every scream made it feel more and more like we were trapped in a nightmare. I couldn't shake the feeling that something catastrophic was just moments away from happening. The banging on the door grew more intense and desperate. I could feel the terror creeping up my spine, but we all stayed silent, frozen in fear, waiting for the noise to stop. It felt like an eternity, though, in reality, it was probably just a few minutes. The man's screams seemed to echo in my ears. We all looked at each other, but no one knew what to say. The girls kept crying, the boys were silent, and everyone else just sat frozen, praying the noise would stop. I could hear every thud of his fists hitting the door, louder and louder, each one sending shockwaves of fear through my body. At one point, I swear, I could hear the man's breath, ragged and furious. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the banging stopped. The man's voice, still frantic, faded down the hallway until we could no longer hear him. The silence that followed was like a suffocating weight. Even in the stillness, the fear didn't leave. We all knew something was still wrong, but the absence of sound was almost worse. The sense of impending danger lingered, making us all feel uneasy. After what seemed like an eternity, the dean came back on the loudspeaker. His voice was calm but strained. He explained the situation. A mentally unstable person had entered the building and assaulted the woman at the front desk, causing her to flee in terror. The staff wasn't sure if the man was armed, but they had searched the hallways and couldn't find him. Despite the fear still hanging in the air, the dean instructed teachers to resume classes, but with one rule: keep all doors locked and don't let any students leave for any reason. The lockdown was lifted, but it felt like the danger was still there, lurking in the corners. We were told to go back to class, but how could anyone go back to normal after what had just happened? The fear still lingered. Even though the sirens were getting closer, there was no guarantee that the man had been caught. The tension in the air was thick, like the calm before the storm, and I couldn't shake the thought that there was still danger out there. The uncertainty was worse than the chaos itself. We had no idea if he was still in the building or if he had gotten away. The most disturbing part: a janitor working the night shift later found a man sleeping in a storage closet near the back of the school, and apparently, sticking out of his pocket was a .44 Magnum. The janitor must have done something to wake him up, perhaps accidentally leaving the closet door open, because by the time the police arrived, the man was gone. The fact that he was that close to us, hiding in plain sight, was terrifying. To this day, I wonder what happened to him. Did they catch him? Was he ever brought to justice? The fact that the school didn't tell us everything still bothers me. I'm not sure if it was to avoid further panic, but it left us all questioning the safety of our school, our lives. Every day after that, the hallways felt different. The doors felt heavier. The walls felt like they were closing in, reminding me that danger can be closer than we think.